today? Welcome, Mike Morris and Rusty Jeffers. How are you fellas doing today?
Doing great.
Good. So this is our second edition. This would be our Bodybuilding Legends edition. As moving forward, we're going to have celebrity guests on as well too. I consider you guys celebrity guests because, literally. Back in the day, I remember in order to see any one of you, we would have had to wait months for the next magazine to come out because you guys weren't available. It was rare to see any one of you. Now, times have changed. Times have changed so much to where social media, we can look in the flick of our hand and see a pro wherever that is. But how do you guys remember that when you had to actually look in a magazine and see what the pros look like and who was up and coming? Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. No internet. I remember there was no video cameras before. If you wanted to see someone, you literally had to go and buy a magazine and open it up and look at it, or go to someone's show and see them in person.
Yeah, it was different back in those days. Hopefully different, I would say that too. And then not to mention that, but I think social media has also spoiled a lot of people too. It spoiled a lot of people. We're so distracted. I don't even think people, for the most part, know hard work is or hard training and what hard training looks like. We're going to dive into those questions with you two in a bit. But yes, times have changed. Now when people go to the gym, they have cell phones in front of them, and then they remember, oh, yeah, I forgot I have this next set to do. So they're putting the cart before the horse now. And then now when people train, it's a little bit backwards now. Can you agree with that? Or what do you see as far as 2026?
I 100% agree with that. I can't believe every time I go to the gym how everybody's on their phone while they're training. It kind of baffles my mind. They'll be sitting somewhere and they're completely on their phone. And just like you said, a certain amount of time will go by. I'm thinking, okay, maybe they have a stopwatch and it's on their phone, and after 90 or 180 seconds or so, it kind of beeps and lets them know it's time for their set. But nope, they don't do that. They're all on their phone. I've been in the sauna. There's guys in the sauna. Everybody's on their phone in the sauna. I thought the phone was...
Oh, hey, Rusty, is that like some power tools going on back there? It sounds like some power tools.
Yeah. They're redoing the mirrors to my specifications in the posing room over here.
Okay, what do they got going on back there? Is that the posing room where you're going to be helping people pose?
He goes 10 minutes? I'll come get you in 10 minutes. Okay, they're going to come get me in 10 minutes. So I'm going to go back into the office where it's quiet.
Okay, all right, sounds good. So we're going to move forward with some questions right now. So, Mike, I'll start with you, Mike. Of course. So, a lot of these questions I'm going to ask you are pretty much common sense, but a lot of people, we can talk about conservative values, things like that, but I think that when we talk about conservative values or even anything traditional, we're using reference to just common sense. One of the questions I'll ask you is, Mike, you went from a 265-pound freak on stage looking like a normal Jack dad now, be honest. Was the post-competition crash just your kidneys saying, bro, we're done? Or did you finally discover that thing called cardio?
Oh, Lord.
First, I'll start you with a correction. I was up to 280 pounds. So
280? Wait, hold on. You went up to 280 pounds?
that was my heaviest body weight. Just so
Dang.
clear. My heaviest competition weight was about 238 on stage. Yeah, I've always gotten my blood work done, and I've always kind of analyzed it myself. But there was a period of time where I just, in hindsight, was basically just ignoring it, being like, yeah, I have to kind of push the envelope here and be the best I can be. And eventually it just got to the point where it was got to such a high level that I couldn't ignore it anymore. It was a truly come to God moment. It was kind of the beginning of where I got saved. And for the first time in my life, it was just made very clear to me, you either continue in what you're doing, which was all I've ever known since I was 14 years old, or give that all up and live. And I decided to give that all up and live. And it was a difficult decision, and it was hard, but I'm the type of person, when I set my mind on something, I do it. And I praise God that I did. So, because here I am talking to you, and I know for certain if I would have continued on that path, Mike Morris wouldn't be here right now. And we all know the story too well with all other bodybuilders that aren't with us anymore. So
yeah,
thank God that I'm still alive.
So Rusty, I'll ask the same question. What was your heaviest you've ever gotten in the off season, and did you experience more health issues getting heavier?
Not necessarily. I was younger when I got that heavy. I got up to 272, and I was literally, I would get out of breath just walking to the car, I'm like, okay, this can't be healthy, Yeah. I need to have a spot to have someone help me tie my shoes, because I'd have to go down and go, oh God. Then I have to sit back up and be out of breath. I'm like, nah, I can't keep up. It's great pushing that kind of weight. Rattling 4 plates on the bench and, doing an 830-pound squat for a triple. I'm like, okay, this is cool being able to lift that much, but you can't sustain that,
That sounds like a lot of weight. Rusty, did you experience any health issues like high blood pressure the heavier you got?
I would always go in for my blood work, and I'd always take a month or two to kind of clean up a little bit before I'd go in. So I was pretty lucky, knock on wood. I haven't had any real issues with that.
Okay. Sounds good. I want to ask another question to Mike. Rusty, you have a whole nother set of questions that I have for you too. But going through the list of questions I have for Mike, this is kind of like the dark side of the discussion. You've talked openly about the painkillers and the dark side. So I remember that one time Joe Rogan had brought you up. Do you remember that, when Joe Rogan brought you up and the interesting interview that you did for Iron Affinity?
Yes. Yeah. I don't think he mentioned me by name, but I was
he didn't.
By some other people he was referring to me, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. The fact that he was bringing you up on Joe Rogan was extremely interesting. So when you talked openly about the pain, and I like the LAPD hat that you had on during that too, but the dark side, so scale of 1 to 10, how many times did you wake up thinking, today I might die, versus today I might win the Hungarian Pro again, and which one was better? Obviously living, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, I got hooked on painkillers when the Oxycontin craze kind of just came out somewhere around 2000, right after I turned pro, actually. Yeah, I kind of didn't realize how in deep or how addicted I was, because as bodybuilders, we're taking steroids and insulin and injections and growth hormone. We're taking so many injections a day, and we're taking our orals and our Anavar and our D-ball and an arsenal of drugs. And I thought, you know, hey, what's a half of an Oxycontin every other day or something like that? I thought I was controlling it, but I wasn't. And I just kind of, I want to get the message out there for people that recreational drugs have no place in bodybuilding if you want to go far. You know, you're just kind of, you're going to crash and burn if you go down that road. So that's the message that I kind of want to get out there to people. So
sounds fair. I think that I had befriended Rich Piana and we hung out a few times. And I think that I wish he'd have stayed away from the rec stuff and then purely stayed, you know, closer to like maybe the health stuff, like maybe testosterone, things like that. But obviously, you know, we can't obviously stay all the way away once we're hooked and addicted on something. I think that sometimes if you're on an addiction, you have to be able to replace it with something. You can't just automatically say, I'm just going to stop cold turkey. Maybe you're able to do that, but that's got to be a tough thing to do.
Yeah, I do want to say that if I had never gotten involved in the painkillers, I do believe my career in bodybuilding would have been extended. I'm going to say at least another 5 or 10 years. I mean, when I pulled out because my kidney tests were so high, I had just placed top 5 at the Australian Pro behind Lee Priest. It was my best placing ever. That was my only top 5 placing. I was always kind of a top 10 or a top 15 kind of guy. But that was the peak of where I was. I got paid to, they flew me out to Australia. They paid my way. I came home with my top 5 finish and my prize money. So I was on top of the world. So for me to, you know, for God to speak to me and say, hey, listen, you got to give this up or you're going to die. I would have had to make that decision. And I'm thankful that I did. But if I hadn't gotten involved with painkillers, I think I could have extended my bodybuilding career another 5 or 10 years and kept rising up. So another cautionary tale to bodybuilders to stay away from the rec stuff. It doesn't help you at all. It doesn't help you at all.
So I had to remember when I started my career in bodybuilding, and one of the things that I'd be cautionary towards is insulin. I had heard the story that you had about your insulin issue, and I started taking this with my coach, having me take that, even though, and I just want to let the audience know that insulin's a drug that shuttles nutrients and I would say other material to our muscles to aid in development in recovery, but used wrongly, that can literally lead to you growing a set of wings on your back. So, Mike, there was a situation with oatmeal. You were taking oatmeal and you didn't get the oatmeal in time, something like that. Can you kind of go into this a little bit further?
Yeah, I'll kind of just give you the preface of the story. I think it was right before I turned pro. I was preparing for the 1999 North American Bodybuilding Championships. It was maybe a couple of weeks before. I had taken my meal. I took my insulin shot and I went to CVS, and I was on the way home and I already had my oatmeal waiting for me at home because I'm very diligent, as we all are, with our meals and everything. And I can tell, like, I knew from insulin that I could tell the warning signs, you know, a little numbness in the tongue. I could get lightheadedness. So when I was shopping, I just kind of dropped my basket and I left and I went to race home to my oatmeal. Well, I got pulled over. So I'm already kind of woozy. I'm already kind of lightheaded. My blood sugar was low. The cop pulled me over and I was beading sweat. And the cop came over to me. Luckily, I just gave him my ID and everything. Well, he ended up calling the paramedics because I think he could tell I was kind of loopy. He gave me a glucose thing to kind of suck on, but I was like, I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to eat this because it's all sugar. So I was just kind of pretending. And apparently the cop kind of leaned in and be like, Mike, you got to squeeze the tube. And I don't remember this, but the cop told me. He was like, I batted his hand away and I was like, oh, get away from me. I was like, oh, okay. So once the ambulance finally got there, they got me out of the car. They called backup from another township, and by then I'm getting kind of combative and they're kind of surrounding me. And the best I can remember was I just kind of dawned on me. I had enough sugar going to my brain, which wasn't much, that says they're just going to take my sugar and they're going to force me to go to the hospital. And I'm getting ready to turn pro. So I just flipped out. I hulked out. I went, rah, and I just took off. I was wearing flip-flops. My flip-flops went flying in either direction. And I ran home. I got pulled over about 3 blocks away from my house, but I ran back to my house, ate my oatmeal, Cop showed up later with like 3 cop cars and fire trucks and ambulances. And cop was, when I answered the door, he's like, "Yeah, you feeling better, Mike?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am." So anyway, then the ambulance was there after I ate my oatmeal and my egg whites, whatever I had. And they took my blood sugar and it was 40. So they were still highly urging me to go to the hospital. But of course I signed that thing and I refused service. So that's the end of that insulin story. But there have been previous stories where I was kind of flat out on the ground. Yeah, insulin's it's a powerful drug that you need to be careful with. And I remember when I first started insulin, I would just start with like 1 IU or 2 IUs, and I'd always do 10 grams of carbs per IU. But yeah, when you're dieting for a bodybuilding competition, you're limiting your carbs, and your brain needs carbohydrates, and it can be a dangerous thing.
So back to the question about insulin, Rusty, do you think that insulin has its place in bodybuilding, especially if you're using it correctly, if I even want to say that? And have you seen it being used correctly in bodybuilding? Hold on real quick. Go ahead, Rusty. Sorry, you're muted.
The insulin thing is like, I don't agree with trying to put on all this size with insulin, but I do believe that it can be used to peak for a show. So, for instance, if you're a little bit too flat, and you're not, you've been eating some meals and you're not coming up quick enough, right? Well, that's when you can take some insulin and maybe fill out a little more from it. It just basically what Mike said. It shuttles more stuff in quicker.
So I do have that brings up a fascinating scenario that happened. You've mentioned in the past, Mike, that Milo Sarshev was backstage and he looked like an average person. And then describe this whole transformation that happened, because I want the audience to hear about this. This is very fascinating. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, you can go back to that previous interview and watch the original one. Yeah, he showed up, and at the time, I didn't think he was competing. I really didn't. He got undressed, and I just thought he looked flat and didn't have a tan. And I've been on a podcast since then, and he's corrected me, because I was like, I'm pretty sure I thought I saw him getting injected, but I was talking about insulin, I was talking about acetylcholine, and he did kind of correct me and said, and I know this too, that when you do acetylcholine, you're going to do it like a day before the show, a couple of days. You're not going to do it backstage. But the truth of the matter is, when he took off his clothes, I didn't think he was competing, but then they started putting the tan on him. He started eating his jam. He started pumping up, and he literally transformed into, I don't want to say an average person, but I just wasn't sure if he was competing or not. But he was, and he did beat me in that competition. But I mean, it kind of just goes for all bodybuilders and pro bodybuilders that, you can transform yourself in a very short period of time. And, Milo's has that incredible physique where certain people, backstage might not look impressive, but then their genetics and their physique, you get under the lights, with your tan and all oiled up. And
deep leg separation.
Yep. I mean, I've done so many shows where David Henry's another example. I competed with Dexter Jackson back before, when we were amateurs too. He's another one that looks like back when before he turned pro and he was a middleweight. Again, one of those bodybuilders backstage, you glance at people and, I was like, oh, I got this guy beat. He's so much bigger than him. But then you're sitting there in the lineup and they call him in the first call out, and you're just sitting there looking at his ripped back and, striated lower back. And you're like, wow, I guess he's got me beat then. So it's
Yeah, that's crazy. It sounds like, the Formula One racing where the guy's pulling up to the car, to the techs, and they're like, zzz, and they take the tires off and they do all this, and cars back on the track real quick. Yeah. It just sounds like one of those situations, the way that you described in the initial interview. And I just wanted to kind of go over that a little bit. Yeah. So I know Rusty had said that before getting ready for a show, if you look a little flat, maybe that'll help. So I want to go over this. They say you had one of the sickest transformations underneath Milo Sarchev's protocol. What was the secret to this, or did it come with the side of your organs are going to hit you forever?
So, I never worked under Milo. So I just want to make sure you verify the question a little bit, because
Okay, so who did you work under? Who were you working under at the
I
time?
never had any trainer. Everything was all done.
Okay, just yourself. Just checking.
On my own. I started competing in 1985. My first show was 14 years old. I've done over 60 bodybuilding competitions, so everything was trial and error, learning my own body, knowing what works, what doesn't. As you guys both know, bodybuilding is a little different kind of back in the 80s, because you go to show, there's a lot of camaraderie, and then you learn all the little tricks of the trade about, maybe a little wine before you go on stage, like down in tons of honey and things like that, and what to pump up, what not to pump up, to use bands, all the different things. And, you learn from other bodybuilders. And I'm not sure if that's the same nowadays, but so yeah. What else was the end part of that question? I just wanted to verify that I didn't work under.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, like, what was the secret that you saw? Is there some secret to that change that you saw with the insane training? Like, that's what I'm asking for, is like, is there some magical secret out there that people just don't know about with bodybuilding?
Yeah, and people don't want to hear this, but it's hard work, and it's consistency, and it's time. I've been competing since I was 14 years old, and I built my body slowly over time. I mean, I believe, one of the strongest bodybuilders out there. I know Ronnie had squatted 800 pounds, and I squatted 835 pounds. And but when I first started, I couldn't even lift the Olympic barbell over my head. I started working out in my basement, and then I went to a world gym and did my first show. And when I went to that world gym, I wanted to do shoulder presses, but the shoulder press I had in my basement was that thin bar where you just have the little plates on there. And when I got to the world gym, 13 years old, I couldn't lift the 45-pound bar over my head. I had to use the girl preset ones. And then now flash forward, years over years over year, till they got to the point where I was doing behind the necks with 455. So slow work, hard work, consistency over a long period of time. It takes a long time to build a pro bodybuilding physique. There is no secret sauce. You can take PEDs, and all bodybuilders do, but I mean, you got to have that foundation of hard work and consistency and nutrition.
Because I wanted to bring that up. And one of the reasons why, Rusty and Mike, is I get told oftentimes, because now I do political debates and other things like that, they'll tell me things like, oh, Marte, you've probably cheated in sports and did all this with steroids and everything. But here's the thing, though, and I've often told them this, correct me if I'm wrong, that if every household in America had like $10,000 worth of steroids dropped on their doorstep, there'd still be less than 2% of people that turn pro. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Probably.
Absolutely. I believe. Right. Yeah.
I mean, you gotta really know how to endure pain to be a professional, any type of professional athlete, but especially a bodybuilder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your pain tolerance, is going to be whether that's going to be what's going to make you or break you. And you have to be uncomfortable pretty much all the time.
Yep. And to Rusty's point, the training that you do in the gym, hour and a half, whatever it is, you have to be able to endure that intense training, push yourself beyond your limit, and then you go home, and the diet is a 24-hour thing. You go home, you take your shower, you get comfortable, and you got to stay diligent with your eating. You got to eat every 2 hours. You got to, if you're off season, you got to force that food, which I think is harder than dieting. But then when you're dieting, you're starving, your metabolism through the roof, and you got to eat your chicken breast and white rice every 2 hours. I mean, I don't think most people realize how hard it is to eat every 2 hours on the hour for 16 weeks up until a bodybuilding competition.
So you guys mean to tell me that I just can't, put steroids in my body and all of a sudden be some superhero looking guy? What a crazy concept.
That's it. We're all on the same page.
This is crazy. Right. That's just assumed by the masses out there. They just think, oh, steroids. They point and they blame something when really they don't understand that there's a lot of suffering and discipline that goes along with this. And it's like, yeah, I don't even have a social life at some point. And I'm pretty sure that both of you guys at some point just deleted your social life where it's non-existent to focus on some tunnel vision quest or a mission quest to defeat opponents that you see at a show or a bodybuilding competition. I think very few people get to see that because all the limelight stuff, the highlight stuff, isn't going to be your hours on a treadmill, you eating a chicken breast, or you sacrificing birthday parties and things like that to stay focused. A lot of people just negate that when it comes to this. Rusty, you have a lot of experience when it comes to this, and you've also started out lifting when you were younger. Mike and Rusty, either one of you guys can answer this. Mike said 14. Rusty, at what age did you start training yourself?
I think I was 12, something like that. My one of my uncles, gave me like a little set of like 15-pound dumbbells and showed me how to do a couple of movements. So I started doing that. And then I was like, I want to do more. And so I ended up going to Kmart and buying a weight set. Me and my buddy Steve Stanton went down to the Kmart and bought ourselves a weight set. And we brought it back on the bus, right? And so I finally get it home. And I go to set it down on the kitchen table, right? And the whole table breaks because it's a 100-pound box of these weights, right? My mom screams. I'm like, oh no, I just broke the kitchen table.
Yeah. Again, I really corrected you, Marte, but 14 was my first bodybuilding competition. So
so you started beforehand.
Yeah, like Rusty, I think it was somewhere around 12 because we had I'm the youngest of 4, and my father had a weight set in the basement. We just had a small little bench with it kind of went to an incline. We had the rafters in the old New Jersey, ceiling with a bar there that you could do pull-ups on, and just a small weight set. And it was really just my dad and my brothers that were kind of working out. And just, I guess, as a 12-year-old kid, I would just go down there and work out with them a little bit, and kind of took off from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, Kmart is kind of a throwback of the past. Now we have Walmarts and Wincos and other stuff like that. So continue on with the trail of questions that I have for you, Mike. I am putting you first because Rusty Jeffers is such a legend that I have to save him for the last when it comes to questions. So, but the golden age of bodybuilding has legends, not just such yourself, but like Ronnie and Dorian. You were in that era, Mike. So if you could time travel and tell young Mike one thing before the first cycle, would it be don't do it, or would it be at least get better health insurance, or what would your advice be to young Mike before you started?
I might tell him to kind of pick a different sport, maybe go towards the NFL, because you might do a little better, and you won't go down the road route as much. But I probably who knows. But I would tell him to get a good trainer. And when I say get a good trainer, get a bodybuilding mentor that has already been there and done that, and is someone you can get real knowledge from. And of course, take your health into consideration. And I know that's tough to say to a young kid or any aspiring bodybuilder that's got their mind so focused on winning that they just kind of want to get it at all costs. But I would just encourage them to, take your health a little more seriously. So,
yeah, go ahead, Rusty. You look like you want to put some input in this. So, what would you tell young Rusty before you had started bodybuilding? Is there any advice you would give yourself back in those days?
Not really. You have to learn those lessons. You know what I mean? So if I can't go back and tell myself to do something differently or whatever, because then I wouldn't have learned those lessons.
It's a good point.
You know, I mean, thinking back, I always thought that I probably should have started doing stuff, a little sooner. I mean, I waited till I was like 24 before I started even taking anything.
Oh, you stop that.
And then it was like 1/4 of a cc a deca. It wasn't nothing. So I mean, I wish I had learned about it a little earlier. Then I probably would have been gotten a little more knowledge out of it. Because I was so against it for so long.
So I'll ask a question. Oh, hey, Mike, I appreciate you bringing what's your dog's name?
This is Butters. She's named after Butters. She's named after the South Park episode. So Butters has diabetes, so she's on insulin as well. So yeah. She's like, I gotta do my show. She's gonna run away. So there you go. That's the Mike Morris impression of when he freaked out on insulin.
Oh, there you go. So, Mike, you started lifting seriously around, 1984, and hit the stage at just 14 years old. Is that correct?
I started working out in, if I was 12, it would be 1981 is probably when I started hitting the weights in the basement. I joined World Gym probably a year before I did my first show. My first show was 1985. So I probably joined the World Gym somewhere around 1983 or 1984.
So what sparked that fire so young, and who or what pushed you towards this? Because I heard you just say, I probably would have told him to do a different sport, but what prompted you to begin the journey in bodybuilding? What inspired you?
I was working out in the basement, and I had a teacher who had a fiance who was a bodybuilder. And I went to like a different alternative school. And anyway, this teacher would always have bodybuilding magazines and would show pictures of her bodybuilding fiance, and I would ask her to have him write me workouts and kind of tell me what to do. And I guess she could see how much I was into it, and I was probably badgering her all the time. And then eventually he picked me up one day, and maybe she talked him into driving me to the gym to get a workout at World Gym. I joined up soon after. And so that is what kind of started that whole journey, having that teacher that had a bodybuilding fiance that actually drove me to the gym. And then I joined up at the gym, and then my mom gave me a ride to the gym every day, or my dad, or her fiance, or whoever I could bum a ride from. You don't drive at 14, so.
Yeah, so the same question for you, Rusty. Growing up in this era, you started lifting a little bit younger. What sparked
first show was in 1977.
Go ahead.
And they didn't really have the show that I went to. Just had, it was a junior. They had a junior Mr. Arizona, and I thought, well,
I think you, Rusty. I think you froze a little bit. There, you're back.
Okay. But in 77, I went, and they didn't have teenage. They had the junior, which didn't mean teenage. I realized that because there was like 25-year-old dudes standing next to me, and I'm like, what? You know. And so then I started looking for teenage shows to do after that, where, you know, I finally ended up winning the 1981, 82, and 83 teenage Mr. Arizona when I was 17, when I was 18, when I was 19. My first shows that I did, you know, I got killed, you know, and it was like a learning experience. It was like, okay, I know what I need to do now in order to win one of these, you know.
Gotcha. So I do want to ask one question to Mike, though, before we get to Rusty again. Rusty, you've got a whole bunch of other questions directed specifically, mainly at you as well, too. So, Mike, you've competed against some legendary names over the years, being a legend yourself. So I'll even preface this again. I will literally go to any gym and bring your name up, and they'll be like, that guy's a fucking legend. No shit. Like, I'm not kidding. Not even hyperbole. They'll literally say this guy's a legend when referring to you. So my question is what's one pro show memory that's a win or a tough loss backstage moment that still stands out to you the most?
There's a lot of them. There was one I was just kind of telling my wife about when I did a show. It was up in Cranston, and I was 16 years old. And I always kind of had a routine for the night before a show where my last meal, when I was carving up, I would have like a small dish of ice cream. And this particular competition, instead of like spooning out that small dish of ice cream, I just kind of took the Breyers thing and just kind of started, I can figure out what a small dish is. And I just started spooning it into my face. And I learned from that mistake because I ended up eating like half the gallon of it, you know? And anyway, the next day in the competition, there was a guy that was competing against that was smaller than me, but he was shredded. And I remember being on stage where I was just sweating. The sweat was just pouring out of me. My pro-tan was kind of dripping a little bit, and I got second to him. And I'll always remember that. And it kind of taught me to, you know, you got to be on point with your diet. And if you're going to get your meal together, put it on your plate. Don't just take the giant thing of whatever out of the wherever and just start eating it. You gotta do your portions. And then the only other thing I'll say is when I did do my pro debut after I turned pro. I'll try to make this short, but the flight was delayed, and I missed my second leg, and I missed my third leg, and there was so much stuff that happened. I think I left the Philadelphia airport at 9 o'clock in the morning. I didn't get there until 7 p.m. I had to take a puddle jumper, and I think it took me to a airport that wasn't even close to Toronto. And by the time I got there, I missed the competitor meeting. And the first person I saw when I was coming into the venue of wherever it was, I had to get my number. I saw Jim Mannion, I believe, or whoever was promoting the show. And he was like, where the F were you? And I was like, oh, that's not good. So anyway, I missed a competitor meeting. I got my number, the next number in the lineup. So it was, and then there's just, my flight was 9 o'clock in the morning. I didn't get to the competitor meeting, was maybe at 6, and I got there at like 7:30, and I had missed meals, and I think I had to get a meal at the airport. So besides all the stress and the cortisone, and besides kind of blowing my diet, and besides getting the last number and being pushed off to the side, I don't want to say political, but they were kind of like, maybe they were giving me one strike against me. And that was my first pro debut, and I think I got 9th there. I got beat by Tommy Torgelson. Do you remember him? Guy with
a long time ago.
Glutzilla. Anyway, anyway, if all that flight drama hadn't happened, I think I would have made a much better pro debut, because I turned pro with King Kamali, Aaron Madron, Melvin Anthony. Like, those guys are legends, I must say, elite above me. But yeah, if I hadn't gone through that, I think I would have made a much better pro debut placing, and that probably would have set the stage for future shows. And one more note to that story. When we were delayed at one of the airports, we're on the plane, we're taxiing on the runway, and it was hot, and it was June or whatever it was, and I was pacing up and down the aisle. I had taken my shirt off, sweat's pouring out of me, and stupid me, I got into my head like, you know what, I'm just going to go up to the pilot and tell him to take this plane back to the gate. I'm going to get on a different plane.
What?
With my shirt off, sweat pouring.
What?
And the stewardess came up to me and was like, sir, you need to get back to your seat. I literally just grabbed her and pulled her out of the way and like made a beeline up to the cockpit, opened the door, and I said to the pilot, I was like, I'm a diabetic. I need my insulin. You need to take me back to the gate. And I've said this story before, but that pilot was cool and trained and collective, and he just could not nullify the situation with, sir, we got everything under control. The stewardesses will handle this. Just please go back to your seat. And that was it. You know, he wasn't intimidated, but I mean, it's a funny story. This was obviously before 9/11, because I would have been still in prison right now. But it's a funny story, you know. I mean, I still can't remember all of the details, but I think I would have made a much better pro debut if I hadn't gone through all of that.
So, okay, I have to ask, how much were you weighing on the plane when you took your shirt off?
That was my pro debut, so I was probably somewhere around 225.
Damn.
It's like the day of my competition. So my body fat's, I've already kind of like dehydrated, took my diuretics and stuff. So peak 225 at 5'7".
So this guy just sees the Hulk rip the door open and then tell him to turn the plane around. This is crazy.
Yep. And he was, I mean, because, you know, yeah, it was crazy. You know, I mean, I guess his eyes got kind of big, but I mean, his calmness kind of put it into my head like, what's the next step? Grab him by the throat? I'm not going to do that. So I kind of just walked back to my seat defeated, because the guy was cool and calm and collective.
That sounds insane. So this is my illustrious host, Cool Vic. Cool Vic, if you can announce yourself. I did say that you were going to be about 30 minutes late. This is Cool Vic, by the way. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Nice to meet you guys. Yeah, I'm Cool Vic. I am Marte's co-host. Sorry about running late. Time zone mix-up and all that good stuff. But it's a pleasure to be on here with you guys. I've read a little bit about you guys both, and you guys seem like you got interesting stories and stuff. So I'm excited about this.
Cool. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you guys.
Good stuff. So I have another line of question. Obviously, these are crazy scenarios that we're given, especially like happenstance, maybe on the plane and things like this. Rusty, for your pro debut or even like mistakes you've made in the past, what's one thing that stands out, like a win or a loss backstage, or a moment that stands out in bodybuilding the most over this career? Because you competed against legendary names as well, yourself being a legend.
Well, there was one time where I think it was at the 99 Excalibur in California. I used to travel out to California a lot to do their shows out there because I always did quite well out there because they like guys who are balanced and who could pose well. And I was always a fairly decent poser. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll go to do these shows out in California. I always end up doing pretty well. So I was weighing in. That's before they split the super heavyweight in the heavyweights, right? So anybody over 200 was pretty much in the heavies, right? And so I was at this show, and there's all these big giant guys, and I'm weighing in behind them. One guy's weighing 260 something, another guy's 245, whatever, and I get on stage, and I get on the scale, and I weigh in at 208, and some of the guys go, "Hey, what are you going to do with that?" And I was like, okay, I'm going to freaking kill these guys. You know what I mean? And so I was, and in fact, Quincy Taylor was in that lineup. And so when they called us out to go to the stage, I'm like, all right, gentlemen, step into my office, and then we go out there, and I was the first call out. Basically, they put me against the back wall after we ran through the first round, and I was like, what the hell? And apparently I had won it that good that they didn't want to see me anymore. So, but I ended up winning that show, But I remember seeing Quincy Taylor backstage, and he was this huge, giant person. But, at that time, he wasn't complete as a pro. Because, when him as a pro, he's just untouchable, But he wasn't pro yet. But that was one of my times where I was like, okay, good, because,
So I do want to play a video real quick, Rusty, not to go over old, because a lot of my audience are people who are debate aficionados or even debate snobs. Even Cool Vic could even attest to this, people that are just critiques of debate and things like this. My channel rarely shows a lot of bodybuilding, but I'm going to show more celebrity appearances and bodybuilding, bodybuilders' opinions as well, things like that, right? So I want to just show this clip, and it's very interesting because they don't understand the hard work that goes into bodybuilding. For the most part, a lot of people don't understand this, but hold on, let me see if I can bring this up. But back to the experience, that must have been a very significant moment for you. I'll bring this up real quick to the stage so that the audience can see this. I'll also show some clips of Mike Morris as well too. Mike Morris was a powerhouse. When I say Mike Morris is a powerhouse, think hyperbole, because what I'm saying right now about Mike Morris doesn't do it any damn justice. Right now, I'm going to show you a clip of Rusty Jeffers, and I think it was Lonnie Teeper that brought you out on stage in California. I think let's show this real quick.
He is competing so long. Matter of fact, first time he stepped on stage was 1979. I had hair. He had hair. Mm-hmm. Sean Ray had hair. And he's still competing. He's 42 now. Looks terrific as always. Let's bring on Rusty Jeffers.
Yeah, this was an amazing appearance. In the audience, the posing is like flawless. This guy's a master technician when it comes to posing and transitions, things like that. So to all the people who are novice bodybuilding goers, this is what surprised. This was just, it was just ridiculous. Like it's,
Bravo.
So Rusty, going through this, you literally look like a living statue. But by the way, ladies and gentlemen, the reason why I go by Mighty Mouse is because of this guy right here with the balding head, Lonnie Teeper, the editor of Iron Man magazine. He's the guy that gave me this nickname because he ran into me backstage and said, "Oh, I almost stepped on you back there." And then he said, "You're no bigger than a mouse." I was so offended and pissed off by this. And he said, "No," he tried to clean it up and said, "No, I mean a Mighty Mouse." And my friends were laughing backstage because I had befriended some people and they were laughing. So I was teased and called Mighty Mouse for a long time because of this guy right here, the editor of Iron Man magazine. But he had introduced this, and pretty soon it became a term of endearment, and I adopted that name. But anyways, going back to this, Rusty, this prolific classic moment here, What was going on in your head on stage as you were decimating the competition, both with your conditioning, your posing, and your lead up to the show?
I was just trying to execute that routine as closely as I imagined, you know. I mean, every time you do a routine, you know, it comes out a little bit different. The timing might be a little different, whatever, but you try to get it as clean and as crisp as you can, you know. And I was just striving to make sure that routine came off. I guess it did.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I love looking at this because primarily when we think about this, most of the time, like we see you on stage, it just looks like we didn't see it, almost like a fever dream. Most of the time people see this and they automatically attribute it to this to steroids. They think about something else. Very rarely do they think about the hard work, the hours of training, the hours of dieting, the hours of cardio work, or any of this stuff. For the average young person looking at this, what is the thing that you want to tell them about when they see your posing and see you on stage? What would be the one thing that you'd tell somebody up and coming that wants to be at your level one day?
Just strive for excellence, you know, learn from the mistakes and learn as much as you can, you know, and keep striving to be better. You know, there's, your mind is the limit to what you can actually create on that stage. You know, and it seems nowadays they've gotten a little bit farther away from the posing routines because they don't really judge them anymore, you know. But back when I started, they actually judged the routines and it was like a third of the score. So you couldn't get away with not being a good poser if you wanted to win, that is. But, you know, now it seems like it's a little bit more just about the mandatories and, you know, like you see a posing routine and they don't hit a crescendo or anything. It's just a bunch of random shots put together, you know. And to me, I want to sort of tell a story when I do my routine, you know, and hit a crescendo or two to make it a little more dramatic, you know. But that's just my taste in posing. Everybody's got their own taste. It's just like music, you know. One guy loves rap, another guy can't stand it. You know, one guy likes country, another guy can't stand it. So it's kind of more of a taste thing.
Yeah, I would say it's so too. I think it just depends because I think that you're going to have bodybuilding fans that like bodybuilders and then people that aren't going to like bodybuilders. Lee Priest was one of the people that was going to be on the panel, and he had a lot of controversial takes. One of them being the fact that we should have voter ID. And I'm going to dive into this topic. This was something that he was going to talk about, and I was going to ask him. But I'll ask both of you guys this too. And Vic is very good when it comes to political debates and even topics and things like this. So Vic, you jump in whatever you want to. When it comes to voter ID, do you think we should have voter ID or do you think it's a racist thing that people are saying should happen?
Didn't we always have voter ID? I mean, hasn't that kind of always been a thing? And then how come it's not now? I mean, I always thought it was a thing.
Surprisingly, it's not everywhere. Like I live in California, and here in California, a voter ID isn't required. So really? Yeah, believe it or not. Yeah, believe it or not. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's what you would think that you would want voter ID to prove that you're a citizen here, right? To vote, but it's not everywhere. It's not every state doesn't have it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Gavin Newsom.
Yeah. Good old Gavin Newsom, you know. Yeah. What's funny about Gavin Newsom too is that in Huntington Beach, they actually took a vote. They voted to actually have voter ID in like the local elections. And the state of California sued Huntington Beach.
Really?
Yeah, even after they voted for it, that democracy won. They voted for voter ID, and California was like, "No, we can't have that," and so they sued them. Yeah, sued the city.
Dang.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
That's insane. Well, one of the things I'll say is that you need ID for everything. You need a license to drive. You need a license to hunt, and even if police stop you, you need a license
to drive anymore.
I mean, yeah. You need an ID at least. We've had to have ID since I think I don't even remember when for most of the things you do have to function in life, especially like why is there an MVD? You know, if we're going to do this, I think that a lot of people say voter ID is racist, and I don't think it's racist on its face. We've been submitting IDs when it comes to everything. If we're going to get a pro card, you're going to need a card saying your name on it, right? Saying that this is an official document of this guy becoming a pro, right?
But when it comes to the rules and I mean, there's got to be laws and regulations on voting, right?
Yeah.
And there's got to be a rule that says, well, who can vote, right? It can't just be anybody in the entire world. I mean, doesn't have to be somebody in America, you know?
Yeah.
And if it's someone in America, don't they have to be proven that they're American citizen in order to vote? I don't get it why it's not a thing.
You have to be a citizen. Yeah.
I think you should be a citizen to vote, and I think that's why they're allowing. I think a lot of these illegal immigrants that have came in and flooded in the previous two administrations that we've had before the Trump administration. That's why they allowed people to come in unchecked, and they didn't enforce it that much. So that way, now when you don't need that ID to vote, now you can sway the polls a little bit more. I think that's my tinfoil hat conspiracy, by the way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They don't. They want a lot of these illegals here, and then they promise them the benefits and such, and in exchange it's like, yeah, and then you give us your votes. And I think that's why they want them here. I believe Tim Walz, like a few years ago, allowed it to where anyone could get a driver's license, even if you're illegal, which means that they have a driver's license ID, which means that they could just show that at voting polls and such. So it's all screwed up, but I agree. It should just be a national thing. Because again, what if someone just comes over here to vote?
Put in a vote.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't make any sense. It's just a common sense thing, you know?
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. It should be common sense. I don't think that when it comes to like conservative values, a lot of people use common sense when it comes to that. I mean, most of the time, like this is the thing that I was going to talk to Lee Priest about. He has a lot of controversial things that he'll bring up. And then not to mention this, but here's the thing though. Lee Priest was actually, what was it, banned from the industry or blacklisted from the industry for a long period of time. And this is my question to you guys. Go ahead. Go ahead, Rusty.
Well, he did kind of, ruffle the feathers of everybody because he was trying to spread out the wealth a little bit, Yeah. And they didn't like that idea because they thought he was going to eventually try to get a union, a bodybuilders like a professional union, and they didn't want that because that would have costed them too much money, And I think that's what they might have been afraid of, and that's why they kind of silenced him down,
Yeah, I wish that he would have came up with this, and I wish they would have let him speak. But I think a lot of people were just upset at how things sounded. So I think it was a lot of tone policing at the time, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it was, But I mean, he had a good heart. He was like, actually giving some of his prize money up to some of the guys that didn't make any, that came out to the Olympia, because back then, if you come out to the Olympia. The photographers take all your pictures and stuff, and then, you basically walk away with nothing, but unless you win in the top 10 of them, you know what I mean? Yeah. So he was just trying to spread the wealth out a little bit,
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think that was one of the big things too. And then also we had Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon tried to come up with his own league, and I don't know if you remember this, Cool Vic, but at the time he tried to come up with his own league at the time, and then we had it was almost like the WWF or WWF version of bodybuilding. Well, WWF at the time,
WBF.
And they have a competing division.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they try to have a competing division, and this ended up being in some kerfluffle that happened to where it just never came, it erupted into something good.
Well,
matter of fact, those people were banned, I think, from the IFBB, right?
The problem was, I think it was a time when Wayne D'Amelia and Jim Mannion kind of split because those guys started up the IFBB, pro league and everything in the first place, right? Yeah. And I think Wayne D'Amelia went his separate way to do his own thing. And some of the bodybuilders were like, it's kind of like a divorce, right? Hey, do you go with the dad or you go with the mom, right? And some of the bodybuilders, like Vinnie Comerford and, who was the other big guy at the time? Oh, yeah, freaking Stridham, Gary Stridham, and a lot of these guys went that way because they were like, well, there's an opportunity, that might turn out, And then when I guess Wayne D'Amelia ended up having cancer or something and decided not to do it anymore. And it kind of just basically then he was like, and they just turned the whole thing off and then it kind of just went under.
Yeah. Because I remember a lot of those bodybuilders didn't come back. I think there was Mike Quinn.
Yeah. And I mean, and I know you know, I'm sure Jim Mannion felt betrayed by all those guys. And I mean, I don't blame him, you know, but he could have made, I thought he could have been like, hey, listen, just pay a fine and come back, right? You know?
Yeah.
But Lee Priest was part of that group, right? Didn't Lee Priest go to the
No,
WWF?
that was before Lee. That was way before Lee.
Okay.
Yeah, we had Vinny Cumberford. Matter of fact, there's a video of me and him. He was like the original Blonde Myth, I think, of him talking, and he was a part of that group. Yeah. But I'm going to play this real quick. This is one of the clips I was going to play real quick so that way people could see. This is what I was referring to.
5 a.m. America, what's going on? This whole thing about voter ID is racist, really? In Australia, we got to show voter ID. In America, last time I checked, when I go to airports, the majority of black people show ID, and Mexicans, Hispanics, whoever. When I go to the airport and I see black people working there, and Hispanics, they got ID around their neck. They go to games to pick up tickets, they show ID. They go to the chemist to pick up prescriptions, show ID. Driver's license, show ID. Buy alcohol, cigarettes, show ID. Pretty much everywhere you go, you show ID. And 76% of African Americans agree to show ID, 80% of Hispanics. That's just the Democrats who say it's racist so they can have illegals vote for them. My God, I've never seen anything so more stupid in my life than saying voter ID is racist. Oh, say someone gets married and they change their name. Well, that happens here. You get a new ID, or you can show your old ID with your marriage certificate or whatever, showing that you were married. It's not hard. But everything else in walks of life, you got to show ID. But voting, they don't want it. Why is that? We all know why. Have a good morning, people. Afternoon. Evening, morning, afternoon.
All right. Yeah, that's what I wanted to play real quick.
Sounds like you nailed it.
Yeah, so he did nail this, but at the same time, it's like I do want to bring something else on the stage because a lot of people, they don't realize who that guy was. Somebody else said, like, I agree with the weird looking tattoo guy. I'm like, well, this weird looking tattoo guy was one of the most prolific, amazing bodybuilders of our time. He was the original giant killer. And then not to mention this, but the guy was phenomenal as a poser as well too. Rusty, you could probably co-sign this as well too, but we're going to show a little bit. The guy was like he was like emulating Superman one time on stage here. So we'll bring this.
Our next competitor was fourth on this stage last year.
È arrivato quarto l'anno scorso, viene dalla
Wait, I guess I must have got the Spanish dub version. That's where we're at right now.
You must be racist.
Priest.
Yeah.
Gli aprono le porte le due miss di quest'anno.
Tra l'altro una a titolo di cronaca sua.
So for the guy in the chat that said the guy looked weird with the tattoos, this is the guy that was going to be on the podcast today, but had too many technical difficulties. He's with us here in spirit, by the way.
Certo, quindi non la stava broccolando in questo momento, lo chiariamo, l'ha baciata, ma è la moglie, la signora Priest.
Sesta classificata il giorno prima alla gara dell'Arnold.
This guy was a phenom.
Superman, Lee Priest, dall'Australia con furore, potremmo dire, in questo momento ci sta mostrando tutta la sua possenza.
Like Henry Cavill wished he had a physique like this. I'm just going to say right now, like, that's what I'm saying though, is like, I just wanted to point out who we were talking about here. The guy that couldn't be on with us today, but we're going to go ahead and skip on over to our other illustrious legend here on stage real quick. I'm just going to show one little clip. Powerhouse fucking monster. So I'm going to blank out the music because it might be a copyright strike. So we're going to continue real quick.
Yeah.
Just Mike, can you give us a play-by-play and describe to us like how it felt doing this on stage at the time and what show this was?
This was really incredible. This was in Budapest. And my father, who God rest his soul, has passed away now, but he went to every single one of my shows, and he was in the audience at this show and came out to see me. So this is really special. This is the one where I placed kind of a few spots behind Milo's. But that song that you were hearing, "Wake Me Up Inside,"
yeah,
I believe this show was 2003. So I was already kind of dabbling. You know, I had painkillers. I don't want to say in my system here because I didn't, but the prep leading up to this show, I had come off of Oxycontin to prep for the show. Of course, at the time I knew, you know, these Oxycontin aren't going to help me be better or better conditioned at my show. So during my 16-week prep, I purged those out of my system, went through withdrawal, and this song was on the radio and very popular at the time, "Wake Me Up Inside." This is before I was saved. And I was actually saying a prayer to God, which I kind of wasn't even sure if I believed in it, but I was saying, God, if you're there, help me come off of these drugs so I can do well at my show. And the song was just "Wake Me Up Inside." It was very personal to me, and I did come off of those drugs. So there, that was kind of the song that I had picked, and I was clean at that moment from Oxycontin. I don't know how, if I stopped at the first couple weeks of my prep or what, but I did become clean. And then I did that show and came back home. And then once the competition's over and you get back to your off-season training and things kind of mellow out, I guess I kind of got hooked back on again. So there's a little nugget of information of that song, "Wake Me Up Inside." And as I was purging those out of my system for that competition, I just kept hearing that thought in my head. And that was my prayer. Just, Lord, wake me up inside and get this out of me. And he did. But unfortunately, I got right back on after the show at some point. So
Mike, you've been very real about the kidney damage and even retiring, which we'll get into right now. So growing up in an era where bodybuilding was shifting from the golden age, like icons like Arnold, Franco, to the mass monsters of the 90s, who were your biggest influencers early on, and how did that shape your approach to training and physique?
Rich Gaspari. Rich Gaspari was my number one favorite bodybuilder coming up when I was a young teenager. I guess that some point in 1985, Mr. Olympia was broadcast on ESPN, and I videotaped it back when we could videotape things on VHS, and I would watch that show over and over again. And of course, Rich and Lee were all in the magazines. Rich and I are both Italian. We're both from New Jersey. He was living in New Jersey at the time, so was I. We're both the youngest of four. I found out. I knew he trained at Edison, New Jersey. That's exit 10 off the New Jersey Parkway. I was exit 4. My father, like I said, went to every single one of my shows. Was my biggest supporter in bodybuilding. And then before the 1986 or 87 Mr. Olympia, I mean, this is back when we just read magazines, but I knew Rich Gaspari was preparing for the Mr. Olympia. And my dad one Saturday was such a wonderful man, said, "You know what, Mike, let's go in the car." And I knew that Rich Gaspari trained at a Gold's Gym in Edison. So my dad was like, "You know what, let's just go on the Parkway and we'll just go up there on a Saturday or Sunday and we'll just drive up to the gym. I'll see the gym that Rich Gaspari trains at." So we took the drive up there, up the New Jersey Turnpike. We found where the Gold's Gym was. Back when you had to use maps, there's no GPS. So we found the Gold's Gym, and I think it was a Sunday, and we pulled into the parking lot. It looked like the gym was closed, but we saw the Gold's Gym sign, and I was just excited to be there. And as we're pulling into the parking lot, we see this guy, black hooded sweatshirt, carrying a gym bag, going up to the gym. And we stopped the cars. We're pulling into the parking lot, rolled the window down. I was like, "Excuse me, is the gym open today?" The guy turns around, and it's Rich Gaspari.
Damn.
Oh my goodness.
Damn.
I was like, Dad, give me something to write on. So I went up to him, and I must have been maybe 16 at the time. Well, it was 1987, Mr. Olympia. I guess I was about 16 years old. So anyway, I got an autograph from him. I was very brief. Of course, I wanted to ask him all these questions and all this stuff, but I knew that the Mr. Olympia was maybe weeks away. So I was already a bodybuilder at the time. I didn't want to trouble him with any kind of stuff. So I just said, can I get a signature? I'm a really big fan. He gave me a signature. He walked in, he had keys to the gym and went in the gym, and we left. So that's a pretty cool story.
That is a pretty cool story, but I'm now going to switch to Rusty because Rusty's been patiently waiting as we've been kind of grilling Mike and putting him through the motions right now. So Rusty, it is your turn right now. You are in the seat right now during this whole autopsy inquisition right now. So Rusty, if a young guy asks whether starting gear early is worth it, what would you tell him after 40 plus years in the game?
The teenagers, when they're from age 16 to 20, really can't really benefit much from any real steroid use. Their natural testosterone levels is probably the highest they're going to be in their whole life right then.
True.
All they need to do is learn how to eat right and train hard. They'll see fantastic results. Then, maybe after they're 20 or so, maybe try something else, but I don't know. I don't think it's really would be beneficial for kids that young to do it. I don't think it's detrimental. I mean, it'd be probably better than doing recreational shit, but you got to put a lid on it, like how much is too much,
So that leads me to my next question. So Rusty, I've obviously trained with you a period of time. So Mike, have you trained with Rusty yet at all throughout your career?
Trained me. I hired him to train me for a show.
Okay. This is information that we need to know. So you hired Mike to train you, and you trained me. So this is like Inception right now. This is like the Trail of Tears, the bodybuilding version, I think. So going on to this, it's like I can attest to this. I've trained with Rusty, and I look forward to dying. It was a new day to die, and it was a blessing to die as I was making a sweat angel on the concrete. This happened many times, and I think Rusty, I have a personal question I want to ask you. Do you think I trained hard underneath you when it came to?
Yeah, you freaking killed it, dude. Like,
yeah,
you beat yourself up so bad that you couldn't even walk out of the gym. I mean, you can't get harder than that.
Yeah, I think it was before the Chicago Pros training, and there was a couple guys from two guys from Germany and a couple guys from Lithuania. It was probably one of the most international, I think when it comes to in terms of presence, one of the shows that I competed in, when it's like I'm back there with people that need translators and I'm competing with them. It's just very insane. But so back to this, you've trained with guys like Lee Priest for decades. Are today's bodybuilders smarter about performance enhancing drugs and long-term health, or just chasing different extremes?
It would be hard to make any kind of a say on that. I don't really have that much contact with not that many guys in this era, of bodybuilding. I mean, I trained with a couple of guys that are pros out here, but they're classic physique pros, right? And so I think they got a little bit different mentality than just your rock block bodybuilders that are just trying to get as humongous as possible,
So somebody had a very interesting question on the stage. I'll bring it up right now. Rusty, I'm going to have you read it, and you can answer the question real quick.
Can someone read that? I can't really see it.
I'll let Vic read it.
It says, what takes longer, building muscle or growing that mustache?
I'm a hair farmer, dude. This mustache grows out in 4 weeks. It's ridiculous. I'm like a chichilla pet,
Yeah. Rusty does grow hair everywhere. When he wears like a tank top, it's like a prickly pear. When I trained with him, I've seen him training, and it's crazy.
One time when I was really super hairy, like I'd been growing hair out for like 6 months, right? And so I had taken my shirt off in the gym to change into another different shirt, and somebody across the gym was like, "What's that guy wearing? Is that a sweater vest? What is that?"
That was crazy. A sweater vest is crazy. That's crazy. So, Mike, I'll even ask the same question. You've trained with people for decades. Are today's bodybuilders smarter about performance-enhancing drugs or just following social trends now?
I don't know. I'd have to kind of talk to him and kind of interview him and get in their head. Like Rusty, I'm kind of not in contact with him. It kind of seems like from
what we can see on stage, these guys are getting bigger and bigger every year.
Yeah,
You know
so
what I mean?
I can assume, but I don't like to assume. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe they're eating more, and I don't see a lot of their videos. But I think there is something to be said for just the generation of people. You take anybody in like construction or finance or the work field. I feel like this generation now doesn't work as hard as the generation 20 years before. So I think that equates to the way, Rusty and I used to train back in 20, 30 years ago. I mean, we trained and we killed ourselves. So I can only imagine maybe the generation of this time doesn't diet as hard and doesn't train as hard. It doesn't mean they don't train hard. I just kind of feel like, we were at this level and maybe now they're at a little below that. I feel like I can see the generations of, people want the easy way out now. People want an easier life. People, back in the day in the 70s, people used to lay brick, and my brother worked construction and dug a ditch for 10 hours a day. And that's how he earned his wage. And I think the generational thing has changed. And I think that equates to bodybuilding as well. I think that's just kind of my little assessment, since we're openly talking about bodybuilders and if they're not working as hard as us.
So that leads to another question that I have right now. So Mike and Rusty, mainly for Rusty right now because it's his turn. What's the biggest misconception, Rusty Jeffers, or social criticism about bodybuilding that frustrates you the most, and how would you correct it?
Misconception?
Yeah, what's the biggest misconception about bodybuilding that frustrates you the most, that normal people see, and then they have a misconception about it?
Well, that we're not very smart. I think that's a misconception, because in order to grow muscle, you got to know a lot of stuff. You can't just accidentally just grow a bunch of muscle,
Yeah.
You mean you can't just take steroids and just have a magical body just appear?
I mean, you really need to know a lot about nutrition. You have to know a lot about how the body works. If you're going to stick into it as long as we have, you're gonna know how to rehab injuries. You're gonna know how to do a lot of stuff because you've had a lot of experience with it.
What about you, Mike? What's your take on that?
For some reason, I'm thinking of like Morpheus from the Matrix, where he's like, there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. You see these science-based lifters, and they're gonna read all this stuff and do all these, they try to execute these things that they learn, but sometimes there's just basics, and you got to go and execute it time after time over a long period of time, and what works for your body. So that was the first thing that popped into my head.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and I can attest to that. I think one of the biggest misconception is that what Rusty said, and he nailed it. I think a lot of people just think that we're meatheads and, we're just dumbed down to a bottle and some pills and injections. That's all we are. When really it's like there's times when I prepared for a show and I had to basically press delete on my social life or any events, birthday parties, or anything I could show up for just to maintain this tunnel vision, even when we're underneath some weights. And I got like 540. It does. Rusty see me with like 400 plus pounds on my back and like somehow managed to bring that shit back up for like the 20th time. And I remember Rusty used to see me do marathon sets, and he's like, we're only doing 10. And I just kept going. I didn't even fuck about the number. I was just like, I wonder how good I'll die underneath this. And I just kept.
I thought he was actually trying to commit suicide on that squat rack.
Yeah, Rusty's literally seen me try to commit suicide under 500, 400 pounds at a time and just say, you know what? I don't know how many times I'm doing this, but maybe I'll get lucky and die underneath this. Like, I think it takes a bit of stubbornness to do bodybuilding as well too.
But you have to know how to push yourself. That's the thing, It's like, I know the science-based lifters and stuff, it's like, oh, you need to do 12 reps or you need to do 6 reps or whatever. But yeah. You got to be like just crying to get through that set to have it to be effective. You have to be trying as hard as you possibly can, and I don't know if the science-based lifters get the intensity side of it,
Yeah.
So I have a guy with a go ahead. What were you going to say, Cool?
I was just gonna say, man, like watching you guys, like when you're doing up there doing the poses and GC, it's like you're literally like, it's like you're sculpting like a sculpture of like a Greek god, but it's your own body, and it looks like it just takes an incredible amount of discipline, like an incredible amount of discipline, not only just to spend so many hours in the gym, but controlling every single thing you eat, like what goes into your body and such. It seems really incredible what you guys do, actually, like seriously. Mm-hmm. I had a question about the poses. What is like the methodology, like when you're trying to like
Hey Vic, I'll be right back. Give me a sec.
oh yeah, no worries. Yeah, when you're trying to form your routines and such and your poses, like what's the methodology there? Like what how do you know which pose to do? Like what are you looking to do, and what are the judges
how to
looking for?
pose? Learning how to pose is I equate. It's kind of like learning how to do a martial art like karate or tai chi or something, right? It's like you have to know what poses look good on your body type, and you have to know how to display your body in a manner where it flows and it looks right, you know. And I don't know if it's a methodology, but everybody, you got to think in opposing language basically in order to do it. You know what I mean? So you have to be proficient at knowing which poses look best and how to get in and out of them into the next pose.
And what are like judges looking for exactly?
Well, I mean, typically they stop judging the posing routines in the bodybuilding. They just want to see the mandatory poses in the mandatory rounds. They're looking at who's bigger, who's more ripped, who's put together better, the usual bodybuilding criteria.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I just didn't know if there was like so for instance, I don't know if you're like they're looking for like, oh, how does the back muscles look, or how I don't know how to explain it, but like the biceps, are they symmetrical or something? I don't know if there's any much more to it, or if it's just I'm kind of new to this bodybuilding stuff, but when I was kind of researching you guys, I'm like, wow, it looks like it's a whole thing that you guys do, and so I was just curious about that stuff.
I would say it comes down to size and conditioning, meaning how ripped you are, how low your body fat is, how much you can see the muscle. But it is a judged event, so the judges are going to pick who they think looks the best. But
that's why they have a panel of judges and not just one king judge,
Yeah. So, but I say
there is a head judge. Like Sandy right now is currently the new IFBB league judge right now. She's judged most of the shows that have been, because if there's like, a decision and there's like a tie, there has to always be a tiebreaker. And I think the head judge does that as well too. For sure.
Yeah. But the head judge doesn't just there's not just one judge. There's a panel of judges that decide of who they think is the best.
Yeah, it's an accumulative score when they take the scores and put it down. Rusty, you've judged in the past. You know about this. I think you're probably one of the only one, except for Mike, maybe. Mike, you've judged shows in the past, maybe, right?
Yeah, I judged the show. It was actually in Peru, actually. I haven't judged any shows here in the United States, though.
Oh, so all of you, except for me, have had experiences with judging, with the exception of the host of the show. I've avoided that because I didn't want to get into the politics of everything. I just wanted to be a competitor and athlete myself. But getting back into this, I want to kind of ask another question to Rusty. So when it comes to this, with mass monsters dominating headlines, should bodybuilding swing back towards classic aesthetics, or is the current direction permanent right now as far as bodybuilding?
I don't know. I'd kind of like to see how far this goes, it's going to be interesting to see, what the next few Mr. Olympias are going to look like, Yeah, I thought they were coming back into that direction when Sean Roden won the Olympia that year. I thought, okay, cool. They're going to, because, typically the way the Mr. Olympia looks, that everyone strives to look like, just like have that physique, right?
Right.
Like during the Zayn era, it seemed like they were, most of the shows seemed to be more judging towards the Zayn type of a body, right? And the Sean Roden, I thought he did a really great job of having balance and size and good posing and everything.
Me too.
Yeah, it's very interesting, especially when it comes to this. What was the last show that you competed in, Mike? Just curious.
It was the 2005 Australian Pro.
Okay. What about you, Rusty? What was the last show that you competed in as well?
The 2024 Chicago Masters Pro.
Oh, so okay, we almost did the same show together. Believe it. All right, yeah, that's a good show. I think I forgot who puts that show on, but they treat all the athletes pretty good. So I'll ask you a question, Dusty. I mean, not Dusty, but Rusty. So it sounds the same, but they're totally two different dynamics. One is your honesty about performance-enhancing drug use ever cost you sponsors, fans, or opportunities? Do you think more pros should speak openly about drugs and education about drugs?
Well, here's the thing. I don't think everybody, nobody needs to go and shout it from the rooftops. But if somebody asks you about it, you shouldn't have to lie, And nowadays, especially us older guys, we're on a TRT replacement therapy. You know what I mean? So, we're doing something, to kind of keep our body, to keep, from becoming old and withered away. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I don't think that, the testosterone issue and the steroid issue, I don't think it's such a, a big, boogity boo like it used to be back in the day where it was like, oh my God, you're cheating if you're doing it, Yeah. Now, to me, it seems like, if you're doing your blood work and you're responsible, you should be able to do it relatively safely, but there's always those cases where you don't know what's happening. People have a hypersensitivity to something or whatever, but I don't think it's as big of a deal as they want to make it out to be. Most people that use are, most of them are blue collar guys, to be honest with you, and they just don't want their back to hurt at the end of their shift,
Yeah, I agree. What about you, Mike?
What was the question?
So has your honesty about PED use ever cost you sponsors, fans, or opportunities? Do you think more pros should speak openly about that?
For me, no, never. I've always been open and honest about my whole protocol, and that's how we learn. We're open and honest with one another. And, I've talked to plenty of bodybuilders before where they kind of talk about what they're taking, and I walk away thinking like, oh, are they really taking that? That sounds like they're not being completely honest with me, because, we kind of get where, if you want to be judged on your work and your merit. And sometimes I think some bodybuilders feel if you tell them I'm doing all this and all this and all this, then they'll be like, well, of course, that's why you're that big. You're doing all that. So a little bit of that comes into play. Yeah, I think there can be hyperbole when it comes to this, and I think people don't understand how little it takes to even grow a lot of muscle if you're working hard, you're dieting correctly, and everything else. Matter of fact, I think that there are people that admittedly said that they turned pro damn near naturally. I was one of those people. I had a fear of needles, by the way, and I couldn't take anything. It's almost like if I took like when I went to work one time, we had to take these TB shots. I worked in law enforcement for many years, and we had to take these forced TB shots. The TB shots are like this small. Remember, like if you guys ever taken it, it's like a bubble underneath the skin. They have to read it 3 days later. I literally passed out. It sounded like I was in a tunnel, and the voices started coming in, and the room started getting more black, and I'd wake up on the floor with nurses surrounding me with the cold towel, and they'd be like, we barely touched your skin, Marte, and you're on the floor. And it's like, fuck. So it's like I couldn't take needles for a long time, so I had to literally turn pro with nothing but diet in hard work and everything else. It was only later when I started building up the courage to overcome the fear of needles to even try. And I don't think people understand how much hard work has to be at the forefront of all the drug use. I think it's discipline, hard work. I think factoring lifestyle, your habits, the conditioning that you have to show up on stage with, the posing, which is Rusty's forte. The guy's a master technician at this.
this. And then Mike, the guy's a powerhouse when it comes to all these facets and putting them together, including hard ass training. So yeah.
Thanks, Marte.
Thanks a lot, man. You guys are definitely legends when it comes to the sport. There's not one gym I can walk into and I'll mention your names that nobody doesn't know who I'm talking about or associate you guys with legends of bodybuilding. So another question for both of you. What's one change that you make in bodybuilding culture? Healthy attitudes, ageism, performance, ED stigmas, or something else? Because I know Rusty right now the guy's timeless. Like, it's almost like your body doesn't age at all. You're fighting time. I don't understand. It's almost like the Benjamin Button effect is happening to Rusty as we're seeing this right now. And Mike, also with you too, especially when it comes to the bodybuilding culture, what's one thing you would change about the culture today?
Yeah, focus more on hard work and discipline and consistency and less on drugs, basically. I do have to say that I do lead since I did kind of have a health scare with my kidneys, and my health is always kind of like the top priority. When I made that decision back in 2005, I continue to live that today because it's always in the back of my mind, like, we're all going to die, right? And, I think, like, how much have I shortened my life? And when I get into my I'm 55 now. So when I get in my 60s and 70s and 80s, since we're all going to die, I'm going to feel really bad if I die because my kidneys kind of is the reason why. We all kind of just want to die of natural causes. So now I lead a very, very healthy lifestyle. Everything I've learned through bodybuilding about nutrition and about health and about wellness, I apply that to my life now. And the same discipline and consistency I had to become a pro bodybuilder, and when I competed as a pro bodybuilder, I apply that to my life now. No sugar, no alcohol, limit my caffeine. I go to bed the same time each night. Every time I choose a meal, I try to make good decisions. Do I want to get the fried chicken or whatever, or maybe I should pick the fish or something. So it's kind of a daily routine. So everything I did that made me a competitive bodybuilder and a great competitive bodybuilder, I do now to focus on my health to give me longevity, because I know the amount of drugs I did before. I know all the things I've done in my life that were completely unhealthy. So if I can do whatever I can do every day to reverse that, I'm going to do that. And that's what I continue to do. So
Rusty, I'll even ask you the same question that we can pinpoint on what's the concern. You have a lot of young people that come to you and you train people, Rusty. Also, Mike Morris, you're also coaching competitors and fitness clients as well too. Rusty, we have people that come to you and they say, just get me big. What's one big thing that you would change about their mindset that needs to be corrected with people that just want the easy path or think that they could just train with you and they're just going to...
It wasn't necessarily an easy path they're asking for.
Yeah.
When you come and tell somebody you want to get big, to me, it sounds like somebody who wants to know what it takes to get big, right?
Yeah.
So, for me, it's like, let's look at you remember Sling Blade when we don't know why this lawnmower ain't working, and he looks into it, there ain't no gas in it, right? He looked at the stupidest thing first, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I kind of do when it comes to training people, right? You got to look at the stupidest things first. Okay, is your nutrition going to allow you to even grow? Are you getting enough protein in a day? Are you getting your nutritional needs met for what you want to do here? You got to look at the first things first, and I don't know if somebody asked if they want my help to get big. They're not asking for an easy path. They're asking how do I do that? So I'm going to teach them how to do it. And there's a few different ways to climb that mountain. Yeah,
but Rusty, so here's my question though. When I say easy path, wouldn't it be easier to follow a path of somebody that's already made these mistakes and learn more and underneath the tutelage and teacher of you instead of just going off of ignorance and listen to random people? That would be that's what I meant by easier path.
Oh yeah. I mean, definitely you got to have a mentor that knows the ropes, basically, that's going to teach you the right way to do it. I'm sure there's a lot of, people out there who just want your money and to train them. And, they think if they just beat you up in the gym that something's going to happen, and it's like, there's a right way and a wrong way to do pretty much just about everything in this world. And training happens to be one of them.
So I want to ask a question to Mike Morris, because Mike has been going through, I mean, in the past, you've had association with dark times, as we talked about the Oxycontin and stuff. Bodybuilding can be incredibly isolating and mentally taxing. How did you handle the post-retirement phase when the lights went off, and what helped you to rebuild?
God, honestly, God. But again, when I made the decision, when God showed me, like, you're going to kill yourself, you can go this way, down the path of destruction, or you can give up what you love. I made that decision, and I made that decision wholeheartedly. So I kind of just leaped into the lion's den. I was like, oh, this is scary. And as I was walking through it and doing it, of course, it was hard. I was like not being able to press the 200-pound dumbbells over my head anymore. And I was going to the gym. My shirts were getting looser. I was still training at the Gold's Gym in Venice. And as the months went by and I started losing weight, people would come up to me and they'd be like, hey, Mike, what's going on? You doing okay? And I wouldn't like the pity that I got from people. So yeah, it was hard. There was all these things that I was going through, walking through the fire of losing all this size and walking into a room and not having everybody notice you and just not competing anymore. So it was tough, but my faith in God helped me walk through it. And it was a decision that I made, and all the bad feelings that came along with it. I mean, I guess that's the price you pay if you want to heal yourself. But just like when you get into bodybuilding and you say, hey, I want to be big, like, okay, well, there's a price to be paid for all this hard work. Are you willing to do that? So I did the same thing with healing myself. I kind of just jumped right in and walked through it. I was like, okay, I have no idea what this is going to be like. But I made that decision and walked through it. But my faith in God has really stayed with me. So I just kind of share that.
There's a really weird dichotomy that's on the screen right now, and I just want to point this out. Maybe I'm off. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but we have the ghost of bodybuilding's past, present, and future here. Rusty presenting the future, obviously, which is weird, and I can actually explain this. The guy is defining old age as like an adage of the past. He doesn't define any of this. He's actually breaking these molds that we've had on aging and bodybuilding to where it's like, this guy's still going. Nothing's ever going to stop him. Rusty still looks like he can run through a wall if somebody tells him to run through a wall. I'm in the middle. I'm in like the bodybuilding ghost of Christmas present. Like, I'm training to compete in the next pro show. And then, of course, Mike Morris, you're one of the legends that has put the mantle away and people ask you these questions. Now that we have this dichotomy on screen that's presented, I myself am planning on trying to make a run to qualify for the Olympia. I don't know if that's possible. Rusty can
do it.
Perspective.
Which show you picked? You pick something?
I want to see where my physique's taking me right now before I pick a show. It's
okay.
I just want to see how I look before I pick a show. I don't want to say I'm doing the Hungary Pro or I'm doing some show in Europe or something like that. I want to be able to, because I just signed another sports contract and I'm getting ready to try to train again. But I'll be in contact and let you know a show that I'll be doing. But this is the thing, though, is like I see the past, present, and future here. Ironically, Rusty, who is the oldest of us all here, represents the future. The reason why I say the future is because he looks like all he has to do is just diet, drop water, and get in and start wrecking the shit out of people. Like, I'm just being honest with you right now. I look like I still have some work to do to put back on all this muscle that I lost, and then getting back into this. Mike is like not only a historian in the sport, he's a legend. But if this guy tells me, like, he's one of those guys that's like never ask a skinny chef advice. Mike doesn't have the muscle he used to have right now, but I'll be damned if I tell him no about any advice, because this guy's an encyclopedia when it comes to knowledge. So I'm just saying, like, I'm giving you guys your flowers right now, because moving forward, I think there has to be some kind of future to be said for bodybuilding. But this is my next question. So Mike, if you can go back and we talk about the training videos and the programs. And I know, Rusty, you've trained hard. We all know what training is like. Those intense sessions that we've had, very old school, high intensity field. What's one training principle from your competitive days that you'll still preach clients today, and why? What's one thing that you would say about training in tough, hard training?
Is that directed at me, Martin?
Go ahead.
It's to Mike. Yeah, first.
Overload. Overload principle is one that I wholeheartedly endorse. And training to failure. And failure means whatever your failure is. It's not a certain weight. It's kind of picking a weight and going for a certain rep range. And then when you get there, you fail. And then to put 1 or 2 more reps after that, and maybe some negatives. But that's basically the overload principle. So there you go.
I was going to say something pretty similar, but basically to take each exercise, do it hard enough to make a difference. Basically.
So just die.
Rusty's you have to work it hard enough to make a difference. You know, if you just did, 8 reps with curls with a barbell that you could have done 12 reps with and really strained at the last one and maybe had to cheat it up. Well, what's better, the set of 8 or the set of 12, right?
Yeah. You got to train to be a better you. And then that better you the next day in the gym, like say you hit a personal record the 1 week, the next week, now that's your personal record, which is great. But now you need to create a new personal record. And that changes week to week, month to month, until you keep growing. I mean, that's it. Overload, baby.
So I have 2 very controversial questions that I have to ask both of you that you did not prepare for. It was going to happen. This is just my MO. This is what I do. Vic, this is also involving politics as well, too. Do you guys think that, you know what? Let me ask the worst one out of the 2 first, get this out of the way. So in light of everybody trying to transition the youth from one sex to the next, that's been outlawed. I think Trump is trying to bar that right now. Has bodybuilding presented the first original form of transitioning with females using male hormones?
Oh my God.
I know. Pretty rough.
Look, I've trained some pretty beefy chicks, and they're still chicks, and they still want to be chicks.
Okay. Yeah. So what I'm asking is, like, besides the want to like stay a woman, what's the difference between people that are women transitioning to be a man and women that are taking male hormones to still want to be a woman? What's the difference between the 2? Just ideology and think?
Yeah.
I would say ideology.
Basically, the way they think.
I don't know if anybody can really transition completely.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I just, because I've seen a lot of women and I've trained with women who have a really deep voice. Their clitoris enlarges. I don't know that personally because they don't walk around showing me their genitalia, but also they have this really built up physique where if you tapped them in the grocery store and said, move over, you could have sworn that was a guy by voice, by all this other. And I'm not defaming women's bodybuilders at all, but I'm just saying I've always wondered this, like saying, what's the difference between the 2? But I guess you're right about this. The ideology would be different.
Yeah.
But I'm not really an expert in this particular field.
Neither am I, but I just had to ask that because it was a very controversial question I had to ask. And I thought it was pretty good because I wanted to know from the legends over here on the panel. But also, I
take a look at someone like, for instance, take a look at someone like Natalia Kovaleva, right? Beautiful, just jacked, though. I mean, completely just enormous,
Very feminine, though.
But in a good way, right? She still has really good shape, and she's still a beautiful woman no matter how you slice it, right? So, I don't know where people go, oh, that looks like a man. I'm like, no, she doesn't look like a man.
You're right, yeah. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of women, but then I've seen one woman that's a pro bodybuilder when I went to Vegas, and I went to a convention to like sign autographs at a booth or something like that, and she was like right next to me. I literally thought it was a guy. You're gonna have one-offs like this, and there's like one in every group, but I think for the most part, a lot of female bodybuilders, you could tell that they're still women. Like obviously, you could tell that, but I know there's gonna be demonization on part of other people, especially in lieu of like this whole transitioning thing that's happening nowadays. nowadays with female bodybuilding. But my next question that I want to ask is less controversial. Do you think that performance enhancing drugs when it comes to bodybuilding should be legal and we should have less restrictions in states?
I think they should be legal. I think they should take them off the controlled substance list for sure.
Yeah, controlled substance list.
Here's the thing. Here's one idea I had. It's like, why can't they issue I don't know if we want more government here, but a steroid license, right? That you can get whatever you need, you can buy it, and as long as your blood work comes out okay, you can still take it, right? Wouldn't that be the responsible thing to do?
Yeah, that sounds like almost like if you're going to get a gun permit, you're going to be a responsible person, take the required training or have some knowledge, and it shows that you're competent at what you're doing. Yeah. Makes total sense.
Never heard that before. That's a good one.
No, that is a good one. That actually gave me a really good idea. That's awesome, Rusty. I've never obviously thought about this. I've never thought about it that much, but yeah.
It's a really controlled substance. To me, it's like having, fentanyl or crack cocaine or something. But it's nothing like that, right? I mean, I don't know any guys who are on regular juice who are going to have to go hold up a convenience store to get their fix for it, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's true. That's a good point.
And the way they justify the dosing of it is they're like, okay, if it's a 10 cc bottle, right? They're like, oh, well, that's 10 doses, right? You could be selling that, like who buys freaking one freaking cc from somebody, right? Like not in a million years, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't see anybody robbing Peter to pay Paul for like a bottle of test or something like that, or Sustanon 250 or whatever. I don't see that happening. I don't see crimes being, and then not to mention this, but where all these evil bodybuilders harming society anywhere? Like, I don't think culturally we're causing a lot of harm or damage or any at all.
Look at it this way. We're helping the economy. We eat more than the average person, right? So that's helping the grocery stores. And on the beef farmers and everybody else, right?
Yeah, that's very true. That's what I was saying. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I was just going to make a joke. The thing is, too, is that and if these bodybuilders were robbing stores to get money in order to buy their steroids, it'll at least still be easy to pick them out in the lineup. Like, who do you think did it? Oh, this guy right there,
The guy like Muscleheads characters from back in the day. Those cartoons? Like,
yeah.
I agree. And I think that the social stigma would go away, especially if we legalize them, like Rusty was talking about. But that's the other thing, though, is not only are we demonized, but it's also in association with this whole meathead persona or this meathead trope that we get. I come from the world of bodybuilding, and I was like fairly new to debates getting into this. And a lot of people, they automatically were like, oh, it's just a meathead. What, this should be an easy W. And I completely decimated the shit out of opponents in debates. But now it's like my name is getting a little bit bigger, and it's like, some people are still having this meathead trope put on me, but we're really smart people, I think, to some degree, because it takes an act of brilliance to put together a nutrition plan, to put together the way the mechanics of the body work, to stave off injury, to have a protocol, to have knowledge of nutrition, and even some science as well, too, to put all this together. It takes a lot of work. So it's like you can't be the dumbest person in the room and be a pro bodybuilder. Also, genetics. So I think that, to me, that's extremely important. You can't just get there with just steroids and just no training or no hard work or discipline. I agree.
True. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well said.
Genetics definitely play a part. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think I put them somewhere near the end to somewhere, but I don't lead with that. I think the number one thing that I'll lead with is like hard work and also discipline, but also learning from your mistakes as well, too. Like Rusty, sometimes I got off work, and 100% of the time, I'll be honest with you, when I trained with you, those sets that we were talking about, those infinite sets with 400, 500-pound squats, I had an empty stomach. I was doing fasted training 100% of the time during the latter time when I trained with you. And then I told people this, and because you need something in your bloodstream to fuel a training session. I never even had the chance of this because I got off of a graveyard shift, and I come in for training, and I tell somebody this, and it would probably be somebody who's thinking about doing a training with us. And I tell them, I'd say, well, did you eat today? They were like, yeah, I ate to prepare for for this training session. And then I tell them I didn't get a chance to eat at all. I have an empty stomach, and they'd be like, what the fuck? Like, that's what I did. Like, you don't have any energy and you're doing 400 pounds. Like, I'd be like, whatever. I have to do this because if I don't do this, my opponent's probably going to be training harder than I. That's how I showed up to your training sessions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do any of you guys have like a least favorite muscle group to work out? Like when it's like, oh man, today's leg day. Fuck. Like, do you guys, is there any muscle groups you guys hate working out the least, or is it just all the same?
I, believe it or not, don't like training biceps as much as other body parts.
Boring. Yeah.
Well, my legs have always kind of been my strongest point, and they're my strongest point visually and genetically. But also, like when I do leg press or squats, if I feel like I'm getting to failure, I can always just kind of dip into my reserve tank and push, and I can grind out 1 or maybe 2 more reps. Biceps for me, for some reason, I don't know if it's where they attach or whatever. I don't have too much of a good peak there. That's another thing. But once I kind of hit that wall, no matter how hard I push, like I'm done. It's literally like I'm pushing against a brick wall, and it gets very frustrating when you get to a point in your bicep curl, no matter what actual preacher curl, dumbbell curl, hammer curl, it gets to a point where it hits a wall, and no matter how hard I push, it's not going anywhere. I can swing and maybe get it past the movement. So that, to answer your question, biceps is a tough one for me because that's frustrating, hitting that wall.
How about you, Russ?
Yeah.
Well, I don't really have I like training everything. I really love the gym, you know. I mean, I would rather be training something than pretty much doing anything else, really. I mean, most of the time.
All right.
So I'll ask
there are difficult body parts, don't get me wrong, but doesn't mean I don't like it. I mean that's why I'm a bodybuilder, because I like putting myself through kind of stressful stuff, physically.
Yeah. I do want to ask one question. Go ahead, Vic. What are you gonna say?
Oh, I just said makes sense. Makes sense.
So I do want to ask a question. With Trump right now as a president, especially around even recent events, he's emboldening border control right now, and there's a lot of deep state talk right now going on right now with the country. Do you guys have any support for any of the policies right now that are going on right now? Not to dive too much into politics.
Well, everybody's got their job to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like with the ICE agents, getting taking out the, some of the murderers and the rapists and stuff. I mean, isn't that a good thing?
Yeah, I think it is good for us to take these people off the street, especially the people who are harming minors. And then, not to mention this, but I think that if we're going to do a targeted sting operation, it's funny because these people, they'll come protest against the arrest of these criminals. And they're not just illegals. They're people that have committed crimes. Like we've targeted them. We got a dossier on them. And we'll say, hey, we got to take up Jose Juarez off the street. And some Karen shows up and she's like, no, you can't take this guy that's touching minors off the street, which is crazy for optics. And I don't know how they're defending against taking these people off the streets. It's just beyond. That's just my perception. I don't know how you guys see it, but do you see it any different?
I'm kind of seeing it the same way. It's like I know it's a hard thing to watch someone get arrested and everything, but if you've done some crimes, then don't you deserve it? I mean,
yeah, exactly. I agree.
Mike, what do you think about the recent issues going on with them trying to target people specifically and get them off the streets?
Well, I agree the same way. Like, we have these policies in place. We have ICE that was kind of formed, I think, after 9/11, I believe. But, when we have people, they have to come in the right way. My wife's parents are immigrants from another country, and they came in the right way. So if you're in here and if you didn't come through the right pathway, you've broken the law. And then we need to have a process.
Try getting into Canada without any kind of anything. That's a hard country to get into, even if you have a sponsor and everybody who wants you there.
Yeah. So we have a process in place that needs to enforce the law. Same thing with police. You can watch videos all day long of people like getting pulled over because they're speeding or drunk driving or whatever. And you're going to feel bad for that whoever gets ripped out of their car and slammed onto the concrete. But I mean, we have a system in place that needs to enforce the law. and that's it. I'm sure there's instances where, mistaken identity or all those other things, but yeah. So
Yeah, I think we're mostly in agreement here. I think that one of the most troubling parts about this is like, and I know I'm trying to blend like bodybuilding and politics together, when bodybuilding is actually a really political sport. So people can't really divide them. It's almost hard to divorce politics from bodybuilding, especially when drug use is mandated as far as like a federal crime, especially with the banned substance. And there's like a list for this. And Mike, you brought this up also, but I think they should decriminalize this. I think that there's a lot of people who are nonviolent offenders who've gotten locked up back in the past. Remember the man with the arms that almost exploded? I forgot his name. Was arrested. Nobody was physically harmed. There was no assaults during the process, and it was like speculation. The guy was arrested and lost time for this. Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I agree. It should be decriminalized. But yeah, as far as this recent administration, I do support everything that they're doing. Although there's going to be a couple of bad mistakes that happen. I think the last arrest with Preddy looked kind of messy. I'll even say that. But with the Karen blocking the car, she actually hit the officer, and the guy had an injury sustained because of that. So I think, to me, I think that was a legit shot. I think that it was not only this, but I think it was a righteous shot. He should have done this, and I think anybody else would have done the same thing in self-defense. That's just my opinion. What do you guys think about that?
That's only two people.
I think, I think he was in his right to do that. And if there's a prosecutor who wants to charge him, we have a court of law that can go through that process as well. But I mean, just from me looking at the video, I mean, a car is a 2,000 pound, weapon basically. And, if that officer can articulate that his was in fear of death or great bodily harm, then he has the right to use his weapon. I think that's most police policies. So that's what I got to say about that.
What say you, Rusty?
If ICE is really fascist and Nazi, how come they only killed just two people? I mean, when they've got thousands of them by now?
Yeah, that's really
exactly. Good. Yeah, they would have had complete disregard for all the laws and would just be running rampant. Yeah,
exactly. And they're even stopping and trying to explain that we're going after somebody, who's done these crimes, and they even stop and try to explain to these people that are trying to protest against them. And I mean that doesn't sound like a Nazi to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like they're just targeting certain individuals, because if they wanted to go ahead and just off random people, there would be more bodies. And when we're talking about this, I think that it is good to have targeted operations. When we had Operation Metro Surge, which was the last thing that happened with Preddy and this Renee Good character, and then not to mention this, but they're like one-offs. It's like if this one person had passed away, they're always involved in some I would say blocking of justice or interfering with an investigation or interfering with an arrest. There's never like they just happen to be walking by the sidewalk and just screaming at people, and they didn't do anything or block or obstruct justice. Yeah.
And that's the people defending like Renee Good and Alex Preddy. They always try to frame it as they were just practicing their First Amendment right. They were just
they just happened to be there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. But they weren't just bystanders just standing around holding a sign. Like they were actually trying to obstruct the law. It's not practicing your First Amendment right. You can't do that.
I've been agreeing.
Yeah, I agree. You can't obstruct the law. That's why I don't think they're protesters. I would change the lingo to obstructionists. That's what I would call them. That's literally what they are. They're driving like Renee Good drove all the way from Missouri to Michigan. Like, see, like almost like you had 8 hours to think about what you were doing. You didn't think about your kids. You didn't think.
Oh, I think your mic went out.
Yeah, my mic went out, but she had 8 hours to think about this on a drive to think about what she was going to do. She could have changed her mind like 8 million times before and then turned around. There's no way or any dimension where I would have thought that she just went there just to protest, especially if she's going to park her car in the middle of the street and then not move or not follow officers' directives. I don't know. Just very peculiar. And I don't think, matter of fact, I'm going to ask a question to both of you. Do you think that there is a solution to this, or do you think this will end with the Alex Preddy thing, or do you think that there will be more resistance against ICE in the future?
There's going to be more. There's going to be more. You know, you guys know there's a divide. This has been going on since I think since the beginning of time, but we all saw like after George Floyd and all the other, I can't name all the other, you probably are more well versed in it than I am as far as remembering their names, but you know, it was anti-police and all that stuff. You know, it's kind of like these guys are just doing their jobs. Of course, mistakes are going to be made, but yeah, it's just the right versus the left, you know, and we're divided right up the middle. I think the right has a slight edge, but you know, hopefully we keep it that way.
I think they're just they're trying to poke the bear so they can demonize the bear.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, they keep poking the bear. Then once the bear bites back or attacks back, then it's like, see, look, we told you the bear is dangerous.
Why did we do that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Vic, you were going to talk about the super chat?
Yeah, I got a super chat here. It says, ask them about the utility of workout and fitness in regards to ideology and how it influences your outlook in life. So that's to either one of you.
I think fitness, being happy with your body from being physically fit, I think gives you a better outlook on life.
Absolutely. What was the question again, Vic?
Ask them about the utility of workout and fitness in regards to ideology and how it influences your outlook in life.
Yeah, your body's a reflection of the work that you do. I mean, we all kind of, I do, you know, you look at somebody and you look at their physique and right away you can tell whether they eat well, take care of themselves, whether they're well put together, and, you know, working out and has a big portion of that, you know. I mean, bodybuilding, working out is the only thing where, you know, you can't buy it. You know what I mean? A lot of people say you can take steroids and be it, but you can't. You got to earn it. If you want to have a great physique, if you want to go to the beach or go to the pool and take off your clothes and be in a bathing suit and show every inch of your body, you know, you can't buy that. You got to work for that. So.
Yeah, it sounds good. So I want to ask you both this question. Do you think that these Karens could benefit from training in a gym and being disciplined? And do you think this would change their actions, maybe that day, and their outlook on life just the same?
Absolutely.
Possibility.
That's a possibility. So Karen should train and they should get off their asses and do something productive instead of obstruct justice. That's what I'm getting from this.
Those are your words, not mine, but it puts it in a nutshell.
Slide. Okay, yeah. Slip this in. Yeah, I just had to ask because so this is the thing though. I wanted to have this podcast because very rarely, because I have a Rolodex of like people that I could contact, whether it's celebs, pro bodybuilders, pro athletes, UFC fighters, and I wanted to create a venue where we can get together, maybe discuss our ideology, our outlook on life, and things that we do in association with a positive movement towards life. And I wanted to get the input from legends such as yourself. Also, me and Vic here too. So I know you guys know who Michael Hearn is. He'll be on the podcast later on at some point. Troy Alves will be here, especially with Michael Jai White in the future. Kind of ruining the surprise a little bit. Mickey Rourke. Mike, if you want to be on the episode with Mickey Rourke in the future, or Rusty, just let me know and I'll let you guys come on board because Mickey's a fan of bodybuilding as well too. I'll bring him on board. Danny Hester should be on that episode as well too. Let me know in the future if you guys would like to be on the panel with Mickey Rourke or any of these other celebrities that I bring up as well too. I'll be in contact with that as well too. That is our questions and our time for this podcast today. Vic, do you have any other questions that you have for them?
One person in the chat is ask these guys if they would ever try the 75 hard program. That's a tougher program than any bodybuilding stuff. The 75 hard program. The 75 hard program.
Never heard of it. I'd have to look that up.
It's a guy named Andy that does it. But here's the thing, though. I would actually counter that by saying that I don't think that there's a lot harder than bodybuilding if you're trying to reach like the pro level. When you talk about harder than, well, according to who? The average layman that just wants to build a body? Because if we're talking about bodybuilding, that could be a pregnant lady. She's literally building a body in her stomach. But so definitions are extremely important. If we're talking about bodybuilding, you could be talking about the guy that just wants to look bigger for the beach so that way he can impress some chicks. And then there's like people like me and the other two legends on the panel who are like doing things that even if you had $1 million, you couldn't even do, even if you tried to do this. So it just depends. That's such a broad thing. But when you say harder than any other bodybuilding stuff or tougher, that's very subjective. So
disagree.
Yeah, I disagree. Bodybuilding is one of the toughest, hardest freaking things that you could ever do in your life. You're talking about, because you can at least play basketball and at least that you could leave that on the court and you go home, eat a meal and live a functional life. With bodybuilding, you can't leave it at the gym. You're dieting at home. You have to get your rest. No social life as much, especially when you have a show coming up. And yeah, it doesn't just turn off as soon as you leave the gym. You guys agree, right? Maybe?
Absolutely. You said it well. You covered all the bases.
Yeah. But when you talk about mental toughness, that's the mental toughness and fortitude that bodybuilding gives. You can't buy that. And then not only this, but you can't buy talent. Talent is something. And I've seen people train underneath Rusty personally, and they don't have the mental fortitude. They'll complain, or I've seen people complain, train underneath him. But then I've seen people that don't complain. They just eat it. They eat a good death that day and they die. And then they thank him and ask for more death. Like I did, on numerous occasions. And it's like, more death, please. And I got my little cup shaking for change. And it's like, yeah, Rusty's like, I'll even ask Rusty sometimes in some way, shape, or form, do you think there's any way I could have trained harder or anything differently? And Rusty will probably tell me, no, you trained just fine today, man. Just keep doing what you're doing. And it's like, that's the feedback we get. But above all things, like I think that if you present a work ethic in front of Mike or Rusty, they'll tell you whether or not you're working your ass off or not, because they've made all these mistakes and lived the life that a lot of people couldn't even live, even if they were billionaires, through experience.
Thank you, Marte.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. It's true. You guys would expose a lot of people who are just grifters in the industry that just want to look good for the gram or look good for the beach. And you guys could tell the difference between a chameleon and a person that really wants to be a true bodybuilder or even a true art. I would say a true sportsman of the sport, or somebody who's a historian or a future person that wants to turn pro or compete. You guys would filter those people out real quick to determine whether or not who's a waste of your time or not. You guys have been in the industry long enough to determine what's real and what's fake. And I think that you guys are the grounding force on people that we can refer to for knowledge, not a book, not anything that's online that you can Google. If you have a real conversation with these people, their experience will tell you it's like golden nuggets that you'll never get from a book, from anything online. The conversations that we've had with legends such as Mike Morris, such as Rusty Jeffers, their lived experience will teach you lessons that you can pass on to the next generation and make you a better person, not just a bodybuilder, but just a better person in general in society. So
thank you, Marte. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not here to please you guys. I'm just saying, like, it's just true. It's objectively true. This isn't just something that's very subjective. With your lived experience, I'm pretty sure both of you guys can hold a clinic for hours on the do or do not practical utility of bodybuilding when applied to life and social value, and even trying to be a good citizen in America right now, because I'm pretty sure we all hold conservative values, including Vic here. Moving forward, I think that fitness can play part and parcel to like just being a functional, contributing person in society. Like Rusty was saying, I don't see where the criminals are. Matter of fact, we're adding to the economy by buying all this food and promoting a good, healthy industry. As far as fitness, I think in America, we're going the opposite way. People are getting fatter. They're getting more out of shape. And I think that bodybuilding is something that at least is more positive than most things that we have in society by far, right?
Agreed.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, it seems like it teaches like a credible amount of discipline, because like I said, it seems like it takes a lot of discipline to do what you guys do. Like I said, not even just to hit the gym every day and so many hours, but even just controlling every single thing that goes in your body and such. It seems like it takes a lot of discipline.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when it comes down to this, I think conditioning has a huge part when it comes to bodybuilding, but then also there's training and diet. There's so much that comes on board when we talk about bodybuilding that it's almost tough to talk about in just one session or one podcast. One could even talk about this for days without even mentioning the drugs alone. There's the mindset and everything that comes with this approach. Like if somebody saw Rusty and he was in a lineup, he'd be the most recognizable, easily distinguished person, and he would stand out. The guy's a unicorn. Like Rusty, if you don't want me asking, what is your age right now today?
I'm 61.
Yeah, Rusty looks like this at 61. I don't know any. Matter of fact, anybody on the panel, do you know anybody else at 61 that looks like him?
No, not at all.
Yeah, the guy looks like somebody just took a chisel. Just insane, man. Your physique is phenomenal and balanced as well too. You're definitely one of the legends in the sport. If I can bring up anybody else, you're definitely one.
Well, thank you very much.
And Mike, when we go back in the past and I saw the video of you posing to Evanescence, you're a stark contrast from what we have in society right now, a powerhouse. And then people seeing you right now, they probably wouldn't recognize you as the same person. If somebody approached you on the street and said, well, I don't know what kind of advice he would give me because he doesn't look like that, would you call them a fool? And would you think that with your years of maintenance in the sport and experience, do you think that you can offer one bit of advice for somebody walking down that road, especially when it comes down to like drug culture, lessons in the sport and competing? What's one thing that you would want somebody to take away from this podcast that they can maybe plant as a seed in their life? What's one good piece of advice you give them?
Put God first and take your health into consideration. And they can always contact me through my Instagram, which is at IFBB Pro Mike Morris. And you can reach out to me and put training or put I want help, and I will reach out to you. And you can get great information from a legend that's been there and done that and trained and competed with the elite level of pro bodybuilders, and also has someone that's grounded in faith and grounded in health, because your life is more important than any bodybuilding title. But I encompass all of that and would like to pass that on to anybody that has an interest for that.
So Rusty, can you give us a shot of your biceps or a shot of your physique? Because I don't think people understand what I mean. They haven't seen you. Yeah, this guy is 61 years old.
Nice.
The guy's a machine. Yeah, Rusty, you're a damn near a machine person. Like this is crazy. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't Photoshop. This isn't Photoshop. This isn't AI. This guy really exists in real life looking like this at 61. Just insane. Not only this, but it's just crazy. It's been a pleasure having you guys on the podcast as my illustrious legend of guests showing up. Me and my co-host both thank you. I'm going to let him say his piece as well too. But I appreciate it, man. Are there any last parting words you have? And tell people where they can reach you, Mike. You've already said this, but I want you to maybe, even if you repeat yourself, it's always good for the algorithm and the fans out there too. Could you tell us where they can reach you and anything else you'd like to say to the fans out there, Mike Morris?
Yeah, you can reach me through my Instagram. It's at IFBB Pro Mike Morris. And you can just reach out and give me a comment or just say, hey, give me a call back, and I will reach out to you. And yeah, God first. I kind of have an acronym. It's called it's P. It's called Pray, Eat Well, and Exercise. But whether you want to compete in a bodybuilding show and want to do it under the blanket of health, or whether you just want to lose weight, or whether you just want all the experience that I've gained through the 40 years that I've been involved in bodybuilding, as far as improving my body and going through the PEDs and also the detriment it can have on your health. So hopefully I can just impart my knowledge onto you. That's it.
Yeah, Rusty, are there any last words or any advice you would give to people who are watching this interview right now?
I'm training people at the Powerhouse in East Norriton. That's in Pennsylvania. Or they can reach me on my Instagram, just my name, and DM me.
Yeah, DM Rusty on Instagram as well too, and you're also training people. So both of you are training clients, right? That's correct.
Yes, absolutely.
That's awesome. So not only are you training clients, but you're also imparting wisdom so that way people can follow and get the right information. Very often do we follow people who are fitness influencers who have the wrong information, and they don't have a lot of experience in the sport. They'll get in the sport and then they'll start preaching how bodybuilding is and what you should do, which I think can lead people down the wrong path and lead them astray as well too.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that happens all the time. I see this all the time, especially in social media, people wanting to get clout and people that are wanting to be big names in the sport. One last thing, I'll just say I rarely put things of myself up right now or anything, but I just want to put this on the screen real quick. But I'm planning on competing again, and this is probably one of the I don't know if this was before when I was getting ready to try to compete in the New York Pro or the Texas Pro, but this is one of the times. No, I think this was maybe one of the times I competed in the Chicago Pro, but I want to try to compete again. Rusty, do you think I have a shot at doing well in the 212 class?
Yeah. If you can manage to get yourself on stage again, freak yeah.
All right. I'll put up one thing because I don't think I've shown a video. There's more videos I have, but this is just going to be real quick. This was like right before the Chicago Pro. I don't know what my body fat was, but it was like a month and a half out actually. So what's that?
You look pretty good there.
Excellent.
Yeah, trying to get there, but I'm just the road to getting back here is like, it just takes a shit ton of work. Jeez, like social life to be damned for sure. All right. Let me take this off real quick. But yeah, that's what I'm saying is like, for a lot of people, they don't understand this, but I just wanted to get your opinion on me returning back to stage again and trying to, And it may sound crazy, but I want to try to qualify for the Olympia either this year or next year. That's my plan. Whether or not you think that this is like attainable or not, I'd rather hear from you guys instead of tell myself that it's attainable, because it sounds better if Dusty was to say that's a realistic expectation or not than me saying it's realistic, because you guys are legends and pros in the sport. For sure.
When was that video taken?
This was about a year and a half ago, I think, or 2 years ago. It was right before the Chicago Pro, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. How old are you now, Marte?
Me, I'm 39.
Okay. Yes. 100% absolutely. But that's your choice if you want to compete again. But absolutely, if you want to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, still need to go more, but that's all they could do.
Yeah, so we're gonna try to get ready, and that's what I plan on doing. I want to try to get ready and try to compete. Rusty, do you think it's a realistic expectation for me to qualify for the Olympia?
If you put your mind to it, it is. You got to get out of your own way, brother.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've been in my own way for a very long time.
I know you can push yourself hard enough to do it. Now it's a matter if you're going to put the whole thing together.
Yeah, I'll help you, Marte.
Yeah, I'll reach out to both of you, and I'll reach out to Lee Priest, who was unavailable due to technical difficulties. He's going to reach back out to me. And it's funny, he just followed me. I'm like, bro, I've been following you for a minute, and you comment or you like some of my videos, but you haven't followed till today, I guess, to the podcast. He's I don't know. What did you say? He has a hard time waking up early, Mike?
Well, you mentioned he pushed the podcast back, and he's like, oh, because it's 10 a.m. there. I was like, oh, 10 a.m.? What time does this wanker wake up at?
Well, he lives in a continent that's fake and doesn't exist, Australia, but so apparently.
Hey, Marte, I got to get going. I worked all right today, and I got to get to my meal here and get back.
Sounds good, man. So, all right, I'll let you guys go. I appreciate having you guys on the podcast. Me and Vic will stay off on for about like 10 minutes just to do a wrap-up stream. But God bless and Christ is God. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay. Thank you, Marte.
Yeah.
Thanks for showing up, Mike. I appreciate it.
Mike.